Black Lives Matter in the streets of Montreal. Blue Lives and Fear matter at the RNC. Email leaks matter at the DNC. Court cases matter at JFL. But what matters to me right now is I'm now level 5 in Pokémon GO. It's time for another podcast. Not quite live from Forget the Box Studios in Montreal. This is the FTB Podcast, the only podcast you're listening to right now. Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Jason C. McLean. Let's meet our panel.
Hi, my name is Cem Ertekin, and I'm a managing editor at Forget the Box.
Hi, my name is Vincent Simboli, and I'm a contributor at Forget the Box.
I'm Gabriel, and I'm a contributor at Forget the Box.
And we're Sunday evening, July the 24th, a beautiful hot summer day here in Montreal. The streets are heating up with festivals. Meanwhile, politics is heating up south of the border. But last week, there was a very important demonstration in Montreal for Black Lives Matter. Mirna Djukic has this report.
Black Lives Matter! You Black Lives Matter! We're not Black Lives Matter! 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 Black Lives Matter!
Over 200 people gathered in Cabot Square on Saturday the 16th to support the Black Lives Matter movement. The event was meant both as a protest against racism and police brutality and as a panel discussion on practical ways to improve the situation.
Black Lives Matter does not mean anti-white. Black Lives Matter does not mean anti-police. A lot of people don't understand what Black Lives Matter mean. A lot of people will say, well, all lives matter. All lives do matter. But right now, we as Black people are endangered.
Many people took the mic to share thoughts, feelings, poems, or slams.
All the names on this list expand our mind's limits. Culpability of criminals in blue default them to innocent. But what about the children? What are they guilty of? Carrying Skittles, iced tea, and wearing a hoodie? With skin darker than a tanned glove? Repeat after me. Tamir Rice.
Tamir Rice!
Sandra Bland.
Sandra Bland!
Alton Sterling.
Alton Sterling!
Ron Small.
This was the second high-attendance event organized in Montreal in the week following the shootings of Philando Castile and Alton Sterling on the 5th and 6th of July. Both men were killed by police officers while they presented no evident threat, adding to the long list of people of color shot by law enforcement this year in Canada and US alike.
Freddie Gray!
Freddie Gray!
What did we ever do to them? Why can't they leave our brothers and sisters and their children and their parents alone? Correction. Alive.
The event was a success thanks co-organizer Guillaume Awit Tamir, but still only a step in the right direction.
I'm happy. I'm extremely happy, but but it's not enough. You know, it's something to make this happen, but it's not enough. We need to keep on going.
The Black Lives Matter movement has so far failed to gain traction in Montreal and other Canadian cities except Toronto. Many Canadians still see systemic racism as a strictly American problem, deplores Tamir.
There was an article from, I think it was Journal de Montréal or something, and then the comments, mostly from white Quebecers, was it's going to be a riot, it's going to be, I'm staying home, don't bring this to Quebec, it's not an issue here, all lives matter. And honestly, I saw that and I laughed because I was like, this is why we're having the event. It's to let you know that maybe you don't know, but this happens to a group of people, and it's important that you be aware.
Various studies found that Aboriginal people and Black people are overrepresented in the Canadian justice system. In 2010, Quebec's Commission of Human Rights officially recognized that police forces were guilty of racial profiling.
Yes, I live in Canada. Yes, I live in Montreal. But it touches me personally also. My brother could be the one being shot in the States. My sister could be shot in the UK. My father could be shot here in Montreal. One Black person is affected, all Black people are affected.
Many Canadians' reluctance to admit that this sort of racism also happens here was one of the recurrent themes in several speeches.
It doesn't happen in the States. It happens everywhere in the world. So please open your eyes and be woke. Stay woke.
Speakers had no trouble prompting the captivated crowd to join hands or chant when wanted.
It's been a long time coming, but I know a change will come. Oh, yes, it will. I'm going to end it here.
Mirna Djukic for Get the Box, Montreal.
Thank you, Mirna, for that report. Yeah, I mean, that's one thing we forget about. Canada has a huge problem of racial profiling by the police. I'm just thinking of Freddie Villanueva, other people like that right here in Montreal killed by the police. It's not just in the States. And I think it's important that that Canadians and Montrealers get behind this as well, too, to prove that it's relevant to us here as well. I mean, it's not just an American problem, though recently in the States it's been a huge American problem with the murders of Anton Castile in particular, pillar of his community, killed by doing what he's supposed to do, tell the cop that he has a gun on him and pull out his license and registration and just shot dead. And it's disgusting, but that kind of stuff happens in Canada too, just not as much as in the States.
Well, generally, if part of the citizenry feels that not protected by the force that's supposed to be there to protect them, then there could be, there must be a problem. I mean, just this is speaking in Canada, obviously. It's hard for us to see, considering it's hard for me to see being a white male, because I'm obviously treated perhaps better.
Yeah,
than
we all are on this panel,
yeah, for
pretty
sure.
much.
And to be in those shoes, to understand what it's like to fear the police. Well, I think that's something has to be. I think the police have to reach out to those communities, and I don't know if they've done a good enough job, especially in Montreal. There's been various problems in the city with certain community groups, especially.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not just Montreal, but I mean, if you want to take the problem to the broader context where it's more prevalent in the States, there's also the pushback, which is people saying, well, first it was all lives matter. The fact that Black Lives Matter doesn't include all lives is just ridiculous. The fact that some people can consider
right.
that is silly. But now there's even police forces or police people saying Blue Lives Matter, as if the police are a targeted group, which they're not. Yes, there was a bunch of police officers killed in Dallas by a sniper, but that was a lone sniper. They're targets of lone snipers. They're not targets of a systemic attack on their being, and that's why I think saying, for example, Blue Lives Matter is actually incredibly racist, and it's just a way to basically diffuse a problem that police don't want to acknowledge.
It's a deflection.
A deflection, yeah.
And to take a leaf out of Jesus versus Miro's podcast and Bodega Boys, it's you can say fuck the police, you can say I am not going to deal with the police. You can't shoot a cop,
Yeah.
No one that supports this movement would want to see violence. No one wants to see innocent police people, regardless of their uniform, murdered. I mean,
you see people, they co-opt whatever event or anything, and Giuliani, just that example, not acknowledging the systemic problem that's been going on with police officers in the Black community, and just saying, oh, this led to this,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
which is absolutely not true. It may not even have any connection whatsoever.
Well, Giuliani is a particularly, I think, ignorant person, somebody who's basically a grandstander. But we got a lot of that this week at the Republican National Convention. Now that Donald Trump has been named the nominee, we're looking forward to the Democratic National Convention. And talking about U.S. politics, Hannah Besseau has this report.
Last Thursday, Donald Trump formally accepted the Republican nomination for President of the United States at the RNC in Cleveland.
Friends, delegates, and fellow Americans, I humbly and gratefully accept your nomination for the presidency of the United States.
A week later in Philadelphia, Hillary Clinton became the first woman to accept a major party's nomination for POTUS. In her speech, she thanked primary rival Bernie Sanders.
I want to thank Bernie Sanders. Bernie, your campaign inspired millions of Americans, particularly the young people who threw their hearts and souls into our primary. You've put economic and social justice issues front and center where they belong. And to all of your supporters here and around the country, I want you to know, I've heard you. Your cause is our cause. Our country needs your ideas, energy, and passion. That is the only way we can turn our progressive platform into real change for America.
Sanders had endorsed Clinton 2 weeks prior and repeated this on the opening night of the convention. While his speech was preceded by a 3-minute standing ovation, the Vermont senator's endorsement was greeted with boos from some of his supporters. The polished show on stage was contrasted by negative reactions in the crowd, walkouts, protests outside, and delegated and volunteers losing their credentials and denied entry over signs opposing the Trans-Pacific Partnership and for other reasons. The following discussion was recorded prior to the convention, but almost immediately following the release of the DNC emails by WikiLeaks, proving that the members of the Democratic National Committee, who were supposed to remain neutral, had, in fact, been working against the Sanders campaign. This leak led to the resignation of now former DNC chair Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who was denied a chance to gavel in the convention.
Thank you, Hannah, for that report. So, the RNC scared everyone silly, and Hillary Clinton, I think, hopes that that's enough to get progressives to vote for her because they're afraid of Donald Trump. But as it was evident by her pick of vice president, she's not doing much else to get the progressive vote. And also, it was just released, WikiLeaks recently released a spate of emails from the DNC showing how the DNC screwed over Hillary Clinton, worked for Hillary Clinton, screwed over Bernie Sanders. And just today, and we're recording this Sunday evening, by the way, for those of you watching this a few days later as the DNC is going on, Debbie Wasserman Schultz just said she was going to resign from her post as chair of the DNC and was promptly promoted or appointed after her run as the chair of some type of chair of the Clinton campaign. So basically, she took the fall for what happened and was promptly rewarded. I mean, are progressives going to buy that? Is Bernie's support going to be enough to get independents and real progressives to vote for Clinton? I don't know. What do you guys think?
I don't know. I don't really know what's going to happen at the DNC because, I mean, Bernie Sanders backed Clinton, but now with this new information, can he continue to do so? You know, and will his supporters stand for it?
Well, what's
they
interesting
were pretty
is
angry that he had backed her.
Well, he supported her, but he didn't actually drop out of the race. He actually still is officially a candidate.
So there's something up. I don't know what's going to happen at the DNC. I mean, right now it kind of is it's kind of a shit show.
So I am an American, and I did vote for Bernie Sanders in the Connecticut primary, and I consider myself a Bernie supporter. But right now, riffing off of somebody from Twitter, I'm kind of a one-issue voter. And my one issue is making sure that Donald Trump does not get the launch codes. So I'll be supporting Hillary Clinton in...
No matter what.
Well, not no matter what, but...
Yeah. In the general election.
In the general election, precisely.
Yeah, but there's still the DNC.
Of course.
Yeah, I don't know...
Is Connecticut a swing state?
No, not at all.
Not
Connecticut
at all.
is firmly a Democratic state, typically. However, Trump won my town and the Republican primary there. Major issue is that Connecticut has companies like GE, big industry there, that is all moving out of the state because of high business taxes. So people blame on the Democratic Party. There's a lot of more things at play, but there's a very big backlash against the Democrats happening right now.
So there's a chance it might be a swing state.
It's a possibility. This will be the first time in a very long time that it will be a swing state, but we have so few electoral votes, it's really not a major battleground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, they're also saying, though, now Clinton's kind of closing up on Texas. There's only like a 1%, so there's also swing states possibly going the other way.
Well, her strategy with her vice presidential pick is clearly a play to moderate Republicans who are freaked out about or just upset with the idea of Donald Trump representing their party.
And honestly, I think she's going to pick up a huge swath of like the Republican conservative vote.
I don't think she will.
I think she might, because it's possible. I think a lot of like real conservatives don't consider Donald Trump to be a conservative.
He's not.
He's
not. No one knows what he is.
He's
He's
just
a chameleon.
the worst kind of person.
He's the worst kind of person. At the same time, too, though, a lot of real conservatives or a lot of Republicans have been conditioned for the last decade or so to hate the name Clinton. So they might maybe not vote for Donald Trump, but they might vote for Gary Johnson they wouldn't go for the Green Party. That's what the Democrats who are upset with Clinton might vote for. But they might go for Gary Johnson,
he's the libertarian.
The libertarian candidate. And I don't think her strategy is good. I think she should have played a bit more to the base, show them a little bit more respect. I mean, Bernie Sanders basically, he's speaking at the convention, and I think one of the reasons why Schultz decided to resign was Sanders says she called for her to resign today, and they basically don't want him to pull a Ted Cruz.
The truth is, Clinton picked someone that's like-minded like her.
Yeah.
Supports the bank, supports TPP.
But officially she doesn't, but he does, so he might pull her back on that.
Perhaps. But she actually needed to bring the party together. I think Tim Kaine is the worst pick in that situation to bring the party together.
Yeah,
I think either she had to go with Bernie Sanders, I hate to say it, or she wasn't going to go with Bernie Sanders. She had to go with...
I don't think Sanders would have been a good choice, though, because...
it would have been a terrible choice for her, because I don't think she can work with him.
Also, I like Sanders on the outside, where he can endorse her, but then if she becomes president and starts screwing up, he could then basically start criticizing her and challenge her in the next primary.
He probably should have picked... She should have picked... Elizabeth Warren, yeah. That would have probably helped her.
I was going to say one of the interesting arguments I read a while back was that it was almost certainly going to be Castro, the Housing and Development Secretary, because people were saying, no, he's young, he's telegenic, he's Hispanic. Hillary Clinton needs Spanish voters. However, a counter argument that I read to that was that a Spanish name with Clinton is going to rile up the American. What's the polite way to refer to Trump voters, and scare them even more about, the Hispanics are taking over, that sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
But the Trump voters are not going to vote for it. They're going to vote for Trump. I think the Trump appeals to a small, personally, those voters are a small, I think a minority even within the Republican Party. The problem is they're now all coming out of the woodwork and they're not hiding who they are.
The Republican establishment, it's very clear that a lot of the, established people in the Republican Party are also very kind of afraid of Trump becoming president as well, and we saw that with Ted Cruz, and it goes back to what you were saying.
Ted Cruz is just afraid of Ted Cruz not becoming president.
But
he's
then
not
again,
the establishment.
Well, he's not really the establishment, perhaps, but you know what I mean. He's Donald Trump is a thing of his own. He's he's running with the Republicans because the Democrats would never have nominated him, basically.
I just have to say that RNC was one of the most exciting RNCs I've seen in years. It was the most entertaining Republican National Congress probably ever. I don't know. That was
something
amazing.
actually happened. Somebody actually got upset and got booed off stage.
Someone got booed off stage. There was really lively entertainment. There was crazy people going up saying crazy racist things.
Plagiarism.
I'm not saying it was great.
I think the plagiarism was done on purpose. I think Melania Trump's plagiarism of Michelle Obama was done on purpose, and people wanted people to find out about it. I wrote an article about this. Trump wanted people to find out about it, because then they got this side-by-side audition reel of Melania Trump and Michelle Obama. I think that was actually strategy.
Yeah. I like when she points out Bob Dole. She's like, Bob Dole sitting over there, and Bob Dole he can't get up. But he's like, he just puts his hands up in the air. It was great moment.
The only living former Republican nominee for president in attendance. Romney didn't attend. McCain didn't attend.
That was just, it just shows to show you where the Republican Party is right now. I don't know. they're kind of like, I think we're on the verge of seeing maybe both parties kind of change.
Well, the
like,
thing is,
we're on a definitely like.
Well, the thing though is like historically speaking, you know, America has always had the two big parties, and that's basically what you need. Like, you know, what you need to join in order to be anybody when it comes to politics. But you also see, like, with events like these, you see how, you know, like politics in the U.S. has become like more of like a spectacle of, like, you know, TV shows and like celebrities coming and speaking and making jokes and stuff like that. And on the Democrat side, it's, I mean, it seems as if the Democrats are kind of like, you know, the better of the two evils, as it were.
That's what it is, lesser of two evils. But I think that when it comes to spectacle, you can't beat Donald Trump when it comes to spectacle.
Well, he made his, you know, fortune out of all kinds of different spectacles.
Reality shows, and this is a big reality show for him. Or it's more like WWE. The fact that he had the gall to come into We Are the Champions when his vice presidential pick is actually incredibly homophobic and has all these anti-LGBT laws, that's another story. But he came in with theme music. I mean, that's something I don't see Clinton doing. Sanders, I see actually as a good speaker. I think Sanders can rally the troops. Now, I know you're an American, and you are going to be voting. You're not going to be voting for Jill Stein, even though your state's not really a swing state. But do you think that Sanders would be enough to lobby his supporters to support Clinton, or do you think that maybe a lot of people go to Jill Stein, Gary Johnson, people like that?
I think the younger and more angry people are, the more likely they are to turn toward Johnson, toward Stein, toward a third-party candidate.
Yeah.
But the people who are a little bit older and by a little bit older I mean like 25 and above, or a little bit more kind of have more at stake, you know, they pay more taxes, many of them have families, many of them have property, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
People with more to lose would feel more comfortable voting for Hillary because it's a more sure ticket to keep Trump out of the office.
I had read something earlier, and like, even if Bernie doesn't, you know, ends up not running or whatever, what he did was he actually benefited the Democratic Party, because it's just a lot of people who were kind of not very much involved in politics, like a lot of young people, they ended up becoming, like, you know, campaigners for Bernie,
Sanders,
for his campaign, and they kind of became this. The article I read was kind of criticizing the idea of, like, you know, making a career out of your campaign, and how, you know, the article itself was basically talking about how, like, electoral politics will never lead to revolution.
Right.
Because if you think about it, the Democratic Party has always gained support by assimilating smaller, more progressive ideas into its roster. So this is what happens with a lot of the union movements. This is what happened with a lot of, you know, more progressive things that happened in the past. And what's happening right now is that we're actually, like, literally seeing the Democratic Party assimilating the Bernie Sanders revolution movement into itself, and Bernie himself is kind of helping this assimilation.
But I think it might not work, though, because that movement came from Occupy Wall Street, and that movement was specifically against Wall Street, and it's the arrogance with which the Clinton campaign, not so much her personally, but her supporters, treated some of those new people, and the revelations of the emails, which is the ultimate thing.
I wonder what these emails are going to do, because I read them and I was like, okay, I knew this. Obviously this was a fixed. Like, you can tell it was fixed.
But now we have proof.
And now we have proof. Okay, fine.
Now we have proof, and it's
like, is Sanders going to be the better man, or is he going to say something about that during?
I think that was why Debbie Wasserman Schultz had to resign, because Sanders otherwise might have just gone out there and said something. I know a lot of his supporters even went against him, called him sellout Sanders, because he supported, he endorsed Clinton.
She's resigning after the convention, though. That's important. She's still presiding over it, and then she's resigning.
Although one thing
she's got to make sure to secure that Hillary Clinton gets
now, actually, now we're recording this again Sunday evening, okay? So I'm just going to clarify this. By the time you actually, unless you're watching live on Facebook, by the time you actually see this, I will either be gloriously proven wrong or possibly surprisingly proven right. But some Sanders supporters have pointed to one interesting historical fact. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, FDR, endorsed his primary challenger, who had more votes apparently in the primaries. And then, because it was a brokered convention, as this actually is, ended up getting the nomination himself and going on to become president. The theory is that Sanders purposely endorsed Clinton when he did, to show that all of his supporters wouldn't necessarily endorse her. In fact, they would go against him, and they would start supporting Jill Stein and stuff like that, so that the superdelegates would realize, oh my God, we're going to lose to Trump. Let's actually vote for Sanders. Now, and it's actually a really smart thing. Now, again, by the time you're watching this, you most likely will know that I was completely full of shit, but who knows? I don't know what you guys think.
Well, Jason, you brought up a good point, and I think this is really interesting. Republicans kept Trump because he brought in a ton of new people to the party. And I don't know if Clinton brought in a bunch of new people.
No, she actually pushed a bunch of people away.
Yeah. Bernie did. Bernie brought in.
Yeah. So he brought in. Some of those got pushed away.
Look at the two directions both these parties are going, and that scares me in this election. Especially if you want to support the Democratic Party and you want them to win.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But believe it or not, prime U.S. politics isn't the only thing that's been happening in the news. Here is our news roundup. So, news roundup. The big thing in the news is Pokémon GO. I am personally level 5. I'm very happy that I'm at level 5. We're hearing a lot of crazy stories about this. It's something that's touching not only on people's recreation, but on certain political things. For example, I saw Syrian refugees were holding up signs saying, with Pokemon, trying to have hopefully people will find them and save them. Also in Cabot Square, right near where I live, there was the police came in and basically shut down a Pokemob, because there was a rare Pokemon in the square, and they shut it down and they wouldn't let people in the square. So who here on the panel plays Pokemon GO?
I do.
I don't have data.
We all do. You don't have data?
No, so
It's killing my battery.
What level are you at, Jerry?
Oh, I'm in level 7. Yeah. I actually went to Cabot Square just before, and I got a bunch of Pokemon, and that's my life now.
He was a little bit late for the podcast because he was playing
Pokemon. It was pretty... I don't know what to say about this game. Yeah, it's taking over our lives.
I've recently hit 5 as well, and I just realized that we're living in the future now, because augmented reality is kind of a cool thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great. I just think people should be, have peripheral vision. I saw I saw a couple of people bump into stuff, and I did post something that someone had staged. It was a guy in the metro cart trying to get inside the train tracks, and it turned out that it was probably a staged thing because you can't really use your. I don't know if you can play Pokemon.
It was a stunt for actually public safety and to look where you're going. But the TTC was actually very upset with that. So
yeah, it was actually a stunt for that, and but it's a good point. It's it's augmented reality is great, but pay attention to your reality.
To the real reality.
Somehow.
And Vincent, you had an interesting story about Pokemon Go.
So one of the things that makes this game so fascinating from a kind of journalistic and academic viewpoint is that your experience in the game depends on who you are, right? And there's been a viral video going around of a journalist who is black talking about how I was having a great time with this, but then I was in a neighborhood where I stuck out and police were called, and I was lucky that they didn't give me a hard time. However, earlier, a big name on the NCAA team in Iowa, Faith Akakiti, who's the defensive lineman, was near a crime scene where a bank was robbed, and the suspect was, a tall black male, and he was walking 3 miles away in a public park with his headphones in. The police approach him and tell him to, stand and present himself to the police, and he refuses because he has his headphones in because he's playing Pokemon Go and working out and can't, hear them. Mm-hmm. So minutes later, there are 4 gun barrels in his face, and he wrote a post about it on his personal Facebook. And he writes, in this situation, what the media would fail to let people know is that the suspect had his headphones in and the entire time the police officers approached him. The suspect had actually just pulled up to the park because he was playing a newly popular game called Pokemon Go. The suspect didn't realize there were 4 cops behind him because his music was blaring in his ears. The suspect reached for his pockets for something which was his phone, but for all the cops could have known, he was reaching for a gun. The suspect could very well become another statistic on this day. I'm not one to usually rant on Facebook or anywhere else, but with all the crazy things that have been happening in our world these past couple of weeks, it is hard to stay silent. I'm thankful to be alive, and I do realize that it very well could have been me, a friend of mine, my brother, your cousin, your nephew. Misunderstandings happen all the time, and just like that, things can go south very quickly. And it says a lot. And then he said, it calls into question who's this game for, who's augmented reality for in general.
It should be for everyone, but I guess it's still, if you're in reality, you have to deal with the real prejudices that exist out there. Moving along to something which is actually as serious as that, but not as serious as Pokemon Go overall, is the coup in Turkey. Last week there was an attempted coup in Turkey, and
That's right.
I personally think that the Turkish people would have been off a lot better if the coup had succeeded, because a lot of times, unlike other coups, the coups in Turkey are actually usually to benefit the people, from what I understand. You're from Turkey, so you're a little bit different.
Okay, so all right, so this is like a very interesting point that you bring up, Jason. People think, because at the end of the day, a coup is a military regime in which freedom of speech, freedom of all kinds of freedoms that we're used to now, nowadays, they get curtailed. They don't just get curtailed, actually. They're just like completely removed from public life.
But I heard in Turkey, what they do is they put in another election to get rid of a tyrant. That's what at least I heard on the Young Turks, actually.
Well, yeah, they eventually end up having having elections, but what people forget to mention is like that 1 year, 2 year, however many year period under which Turkish people live under a military regime. My parents have like a lot of stories that they had, like you're at the cinema, you're at the theater, you're watching, you're waiting to watch a film, and then suddenly the army gets in and starts asking for your identification, because they're looking making a casual check for extreme lefties or righties. So.
Yeah. Well, but the thing is, what Erdogan's doing now that the coup has failed, is he's apparently fired a bunch of teachers, he fired a bunch of librarians or something like that.
A purge is happening.
A purge is happening, and it's not just people who are I understand arresting people who are in the military who tried to carry off the coup. That makes sense. What I don't get is going after people who might have supported the.
See, that's the thing. You have to think about the intricacies of Turkish politics, as it were.
Yeah.
So basically, Erdogan is a part of this tradition of Islamist politics, and he had this mentor, as it were, who is his name is Fethullah Gülen, and he's currently in Pennsylvania. He's either in a self-imposed exile, or he's actually, because he's away. But the thing is, Gülen's organization, what they do is they take kids and children and adults, and they give them good education.
Yeah.
And what happens in the end is these people end up belonging to Gülen's political organization. Now the thing in Turkey is these people in Gülen's organization are also within the government. And if you ever heard Erdogan or anyone from the current government talk about a parallel government, that's what they're referring to. And from what I've read, the attempted coup was Gülenist, Gülenist splinter organization within the military. And this is why Erdogan is using, this was the Gülenist. So what he's doing is basically reaching out away from just the army into the broader sphere of life in Turkey, and just purging out the Gülenists, which
is that really a restoration of democracy, though?
It's not. No,
it's not at all. Yeah, that's what I'm also too. I heard this. I don't know. I heard that basically a lot of the Turkish military is very loyal to the memory of Ataturk.
That's right.
And secularism, whereas Erdogan is very religious, I guess.
Well, so that's the thing. So the military's power comes from the fact that they are supposed to kind of protect secularism in Turkey, and that's the only thing that they do. But the thing is, if this was a Gülenist splinter cell within the army, then I highly doubt that the coup actually had those secular ideas at the back of their head. But they did use, those kinds of ideals to appeal to the public or appeal to the other parts of the military. And the problem that they had was... it turns out that the government was onto this coup plan. They knew something was up, and that's why that's why the coup attempt happened at midnight with doing at midnight and very limited, because they basically were forced to show their hands. Otherwise, they were just gonna get arrested without nothing happening.
Yeah.
So it ended up being less of a coup attempt and more of a terrorist attack in which like 260 people were killed by soldiers and cops. And so it just...
And everyone got the people to go out in the street by using FaceTime, I think?
Basically, yeah. Like, there was a lot of... Like, the coup attempt was... There was a lot of bad luck involved in the people who tried to do the coup.
Yeah.
Like, they weren't able to get Erdogan. Erdogan was able to get away. He was able to contact a news broadcaster using FaceTime, which probably is something they didn't account for, because...
That this guy who represses the internet actually knows how to use it?
Well, I guess. I don't know. But so basically, this was a failed coup, and people say that might have been staged or something like that. And in Turkey, we're saying that this is too bloody to be staged, but too incompetent to be real. And like based on what I've heard about, they were forced to show their hands.
Yeah.
What's
going to happen to the conspirators?
They're being
arrested already.
They're being arrested, yeah. And
is there a chance there'll be some execution?
We don't have executions in Turkey.
Oh, okay,
No,
I don't know much.
It's illegal.
Okay.
So
what do? They just put people in life in prison for?
Yeah, life imprisonment. Funny story. The Kenan Evren, who was the guy who led the coup in the 80s, who also became a president because he led the coup. I don't think he was elected. He is like right now he's like in his late 80s or like 90s, and like a few years ago he was sentenced to 100 years in prison. Instead of being imprisoned for life, they in Turkey they tend to give like really long imprisonments, and it's kind of funny because he got this punishment like 30 years after the fact, and he's 90.
Well, that's I guess so. We have to understand Turkish politics a bit more. Just one more quick topic on the news roundup, and I think this will be very simple. Are the Olympics in Brazil gonna suck or gonna be great?
You know what? I stopped watching the Olympics a long time ago.
Suck or great?
They're gonna be okay.
I mean, the sports are probably going to be okay, but the social impact of the things is already proven to be really horrible.
I will be shocked if there is not a high-profile security breach of some sort. The BOPE has done everything they can to force people out of the areas and to shoot first, ask questions later, as they often do. But as we've seen today, the Australian team is refusing to stay in the Olympic Village because there's exposed wire, their plumbing doesn't work. The Olympics are 12 days away, and many of the teams are beginning to boycott the lodging conditions. That alone creates a massive security risk.
Yeah. I also agree. I also think the Olympics are going to suck. One thing I hope isn't going to suck, or actually is good so far, I saw a show the other night, is the Just for Laughs Festival in Montreal, but there's a bit of controversy brewing. We have this report.
Just for Laughs is back and is stirring up controversy this year with comedian Mike Ward. Ward was ordered to pay a total of $42,000 for damages after marking the physically disabled singer Jeremy Gabriel at the JFL Nasty Show.
Par conséquent, moi je pense qu'il a fait des erreurs. Moi je pense qu'il est allé trop loin. Moi je dis et j'affirme haut et fort qu'il a brisé une grosse partie de ma vie. Il a brisé ma confiance en moi. Il a brisé ma carrière.
Despite the lack of tact, the festival has chosen to stand behind Ward and have gone so far as to host a fundraiser to aid his legal fees. Ward relates the fines to an infringement of his freedom of speech. However, many have argued that the joke has a distasteful and harmful intent.
Okay, so Just for Laughs is in full swing. I saw a great show last night. Or 2 nights ago, I saw Tom Green. It was really funny. I didn't realize he still had the energy, and it was very mature reflection on a lot of things, and also some poop jokes, so it was actually very interesting. But the biggest controversy this year at Just for Laughs is Mike Ward. Jem, you saw a bit of him last night, right?
I did, yeah. He came up he showed up at the Midnight Surprise on Friday night, Saturday morning, technically, and as you might expect, his entire set that night was basically him complaining about the fact that the Quebec Human Rights Commission or Tribune is asking him to pay $42,000 for a tasteless joke, let's say.
Yeah, we won't repeat the joke here on the Forget the Box podcast because we don't have $42,000. But
we get the gist of what the joke was. I'm not exactly familiar with the.
So basically,
I know he insulted some kid.
So basically, the kid has some terminal disease, and he's also deaf, and he was as part of the Make a Wish Foundation, he applied to that, and his wish was to sing to the Pope. So it was arranged, and he sang to Pope. And Mike Ward was just kind of, in his words, kind of surprised that he got, because he's a deaf kid singing to the Pope. Deaf people can't sing. Haha, is basically just of the joke.
Okay. Hilarious.
It was basically kind of cruel humor.
It's cruel. It's
lazy.
It's
lazy. Yeah, that's interesting. It's
he hosted the Nasty Show last year.
Yeah,
this year.
Was it this year too? And
he was at yeah.
He's always. I think he was hosting last year, and I remember he kind of has like a crude sense of humor. That's like he was on that show, right? He's known for that. Like,
no, yeah, he's known for his entire spiel is that he makes like tasteless jokes that are funny to some people. Yeah. He was talking about how in one of his like previous shows, like some years ago, like one news show made him look bad by basically just like supercutting him making a pedophile joke, and then apparently the interviewer asked him about, but what do you feel about the victims of your jokes?
Yeah.
And he kind of got pissed and he was kind of drunk, so he said, fuck the victims, I don't care. So in that sense, maybe the media kind of fucked up, but like messed up. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's okay. We have to censor that on iTunes though.
Yeah, I realize. Anyways, but the point remains that his entire spiel is that he makes jokes about, you know, like pedophilia. He makes jokes at the expense of, like, you know, punching down, as it were.
But from a legal standpoint, there's obviously
it's 42,000. That's a lot of money.
That is I do agree that's a lot of money.
Joke.
Yeah, it is. So it's kind of weird, and I understand that you know the thought police, and we should not be policing what.
Well, the political
or take it to
I can't say anything anymore.
Take it to another extreme. What if a
joke or a comic like?
What if a comic isn't punching down? What if they're punching up and they insult the prime minister or something like that in just this cruel way? Can they also be sued under the same law?
So then the thing becomes it has to do with, like, you know, the power dynamics and stuff like that, like.
But does the law reflect that too? Or
I don't know what the law reflects, to be honest, because the prime minister of a country can afford to be insulted, and then he will continue to control the country the next day. So in that sense, we don't know. Although if you talk about other countries, then they might be suing you for insulting the prime minister.
That was the last segment.
It happened.
That was the last segment. Check our last segment on Turkey. All right, that, like, I guess on the, at least like concept wise, I definitely see a difference between insulting some kid and insulting the prime minister. I think he argued that this kid was a celebrity and that's why it was okay.
That's pathetic. It's first of all, that's a child. I mean, that's a child. That's not acceptable. But secondly, even if it were a child celebrity, when the whole premise of the joke is, haha, you have a terminal illness, it's just my sympathy is limited for Mike Ward. You know.
Yeah, but do you agree with the judgment though? Do you think $42,000 is a fair judgment?
So I think in general, the laws like this exist to protect people from damages associated with this, right? As I understand it, the kid's parents were the ones who brought forward the lawsuit, which is a critical distinction here. This is an 8-year-old, right? Very young.
Maybe it was. I'm not really sure.
Below the age to file a lawsuit.
Yeah.
So this is not a child being, petty and snippy and demanding $42,000. This is parents saying, this is our child's, he's got terminal illness. This literally will haunt him for the rest of his life. Yeah. And that's. Damages are damages. I don't know if 42,000 is the appropriate amount, but I think the compensation is an appropriate reaction here.
Okay. Yeah, so it's interesting. I mean, but the thing is, that's not the only thing going on at Just for Laughs. There's a lot of really fun stuff. The rest of the show you saw last night, there was other comedians as well, too, that were different.
Yeah, there was, so basically, the Midnight Surprises gimmick is that you have absolutely no idea who's going to come up, usually, except for the host. And my host was Piff the Magic Dragon. I don't know if you heard of him.
Puff.
Piff the Magic Dragon is famous for not winning America's Got Talent, and he made us, he constantly reminded us of the fact that we lost.
You see, I'm looking behind the cameras right now, and Enzo is cracking up just when you mentioned his name. So I think this is somebody that some people in our audience might know.
Yeah, like even though he's like, he didn't win America's Got Talent, he has like a gig in Las Vegas, and he tours North America, so he's doing fine. But like one funny moment was he asked people to, raise their hands if they voted for him during America's Got Talent, and no one raised their hands because he's in Canada.
Yeah.
But then he pointed out the fact that people could vote online, so we don't have an excuse for not helping him win.
Wasn't geo-blocked?
I don't know. I don't think so.
It might have been, and he didn't. And Piff the Magic Dragon didn't know that.
Maybe he didn't. But
So maybe he just attacked a group of people for no good reason.
well, he's a dragon, so
Yeah. Not looking like in Game of Thrones. Those dragons are fierce.
they are fierce.
They were really small, but then they got really fierce.
And Piff is British too, so
Oh.
Game of Thrones is British.
Yeah, well, no, it's actually American, but they all talk British. Peter Dinklage is from New Jersey,
Isn't that amazing?
but he
true.
speaks with a British accent. You wouldn't know it by talking about it. Yeah.
Well, unless you watched that one Seinfeld episode.
Or that time he was interviewed by Jon Stewart or anyone else, really, or
The scene
any time
in
he
Elf.
wasn't playing Tyrion. Yeah, the scene in Elf.
When he beats up Will Ferrell.
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
That's a great
But
scene.
and there's other great stuff coming up just for laughs. I saw Tom Green. It was really funny. Local comics. There's Carrie Fisher's coming.
Yeah.
Bunch of great stuff.
Sarah Silverman's coming.
Sarah Silverman's coming. And again, like I said last week, she was in that one Star Trek Voyager episode called Future's End.
Great episode.
Great episode.
Also in Seinfeld.
And in Seinfeld. And there's a lot of great stuff coming up in Montreal in general. This is the community calendar.
Wednesday, August 3rd, Gross Shows is hosting a conference on Quebec women of hip-hop. The event is part of a larger, week-long series of conferences also related to hip-hop and rap in Quebec. Friday, August 5th, CKUT 90.3 FM is hosting the final weekend of Marche des Possibles. The event is produced by Pop Montreal and offers an outdoor citizen space. It will take place at 5635 Rue Saint-Dominique. Hard Femme High Power, featuring Janice Jolie, Zinta, and Kai Chang, is a poetry and music event showcasing fierce femme talent. This show will be a celebration of femme power that continues to challenge and dismantle white supremacist patriarchy. It begins Sunday, August 7th at the KGB. The World Social Forum is coming to Montreal August 9th. The WSF is the largest gathering of civil society to find solutions to problems of our time. Starting in 2001 in Brazil, the WSF brings together in each of its editions tens of thousands of participants to more than 1,000 activities, workshops, conferences, artist performances, and so on. The event runs August 9 to 14th.
And now predictions.
I predict that there will be a cringy, awful attempt to be lit AF at the Democratic National Convention.
I predict that I will finally get my work permit extension so that I don't become an illegalized immigrant at the end of August.
Russia will win 500 gold medals in the first Russian Summer Games.
The Olympics in Brazil will be an absolute disaster, a travesty. Everyone will be freaking out, whereas Montrealers will just laugh and say, amateur hour.
There will be a meme person, much like Michaela Maroney, like the darling of the Rio Olympics.
I will stumble upon a Mewtwo on my morning commute to work, and I will be late, and I'll be fired.
Ted Cruz, not realizing he hasn't gone far enough, will endorse Bernie Sanders' endorsement of Hillary Clinton.
And Ted Cruz, upset at what happened last week, will decide to switch teams and endorse Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Hey.
And that's our podcast. Thank you very much. Jerry and Jem, you can read and Forget the Box. Vincent, you have another place where we can read you coming up? Or?
Yeah, I have a piece coming out for Graphite Publications. It's an interview with Samian, who's a prominent Francophone Algonquin First Nations rapper. He's going to be accompanying my group to Peru next week to he's going to be documenting, he's a photographer, a development project we're doing there in Parabamba in the Highlands. And he talked with me a few days ago about what it means to be an activist and a musician and a photographer and to be an artiste engagé. And we're doing a really cool article in franglais, which I've never done before, and I'm very excited about how it's going to turn out.
That's Graphite Publications.
Yes,
.com. And Forget the Box. You can read all of us, and we'll catch you in 2 weeks on the next FTB podcast. The FTB podcast by the Forget the Box Media Collective in Montreal was hosted by Jason C. McLean and produced by Hannah Besseau. For daily, unique, original content covering news, music, politics, arts, lifestyles, food, film, you name it, we've got it. Check